Hi, everybody. Good morning. Um, it's Sunday morning here in Germany, and I'm getting ready for my Africa trip. And of course, as I go online and researching what to do there and what to see there, you can't help but when watching the news of what's going on in the United States right now. Um, and I had a couple of questions: how do the Europeans, or how do the Germans, or how do I see this whole, with Charlie Kirk murder, and what the point of view is. I can't speak on behalf of all Europeans. Obviously, I can't because I haven't spoken to anybody about this. I've been alone last weekend, so I haven't met my American group of friends or any Greeks or anything like that um, to discuss the issue. But I obviously got involved in the sensationalism. Watching this, I never knew a lot about Charlie Kirk, so I had to find out who he was or find out more about who he was. But let me get to the point of the way I see this whole situation. First of all, this is going to be a long video again. It's where do I start? I think the best way to start is just not just on the murder itself and on the person, but let's just start on internet radicalization, because this is what it is. People are turning really radical on the internet, and let's just look at ourselves, and see what everybody's doing out there and what we're doing. And you should really be asking yourself, are you spreading this kind of negativity, toxicity that's out there? Are you part of that radicalization? Maybe you're in it. We all are. And just to think about all this, especially in these kind of times, um, what I'm saying with internet radicalization is there's a sense of that there's no empathy anymore. We tend to view things now as the enemy. We've perpetuated this. We've heard this, by the way. Okay, we've heard these words. It's coming from the president. It's coming the enemy within. You hear this stuff, and all of a sudden, when you're seeing people as enemies, and people that are going to take away your livelihood, or your way of life, and all this kind of stuff, it's obviously going to scare you. It's a pessimistic message that's out there. Let's be honest, we see a lot more of it. I talked to a cousin about this once. It's called the car accident syndrome in internet, meaning that you're driving by, you don't even know what's going on left and right of you. But once you have a car accident on the right, you slow down, you look, you pay. They see that on the internet. That happens when you scroll. And they've noticed that anything that's pessimistic, anything that's negative, anything that's, clickbait, like this is the secret that they're telling you, not telling you, or this is the real truth, anything like that kind of stuff. You should actually be more aware of that. But let's look now from internet radicalization. Just look at this person in this situation right now, and I think this really proves how extreme things have gotten in the U.S. And how people, the media especially, and those people that are, obviously addicted to the media, how they're radicalizing you. And, this divisive rhetoric, them against us, the liberals against the cons, and, the retardicans against the libtards. This is what you hear. But we've always had that. But let's look at now just to see, how as a society this is really getting screwed up. First of all, the murder. When this first broke out, you saw that everybody, especially you can watch Fox News. I sat down and watched Fox News. I watched Newsmax. It was disgusting. It was really disgusting. Anybody that had watched it, let me explain why. You see how Jesse Waters going out there. This is war. This is what, you know, let's be honest. This is the kind of toxicity that's getting out there. This is war. Um, you know, I can't even remember her name. Oh, God help me with her name. Whatever her name was, Nancy something or other. You know, it was a trans, there was TRN, and there were symbolics of, you know, everybody was waiting for this purple haired liberal, you know, leftist kid. And this narrative was pushed. And you could see this, you know, especially when you have terms like war and, oh, Nancy Mace, that was her name. Google Nancy Mace, see what, you know, she actually turned out that this is a war against us, and it was a transsexual. It was amazing. Without any information, we have already assumed who it was. We had a political narrative to push, very decisive, full of hate. So we pushed that narrative. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, we don't know what's really going on because we're getting other news. So here we are 2 days later. He seemed that he went from a leftist, and then he went to, you know, he's non-aligned to, it looks like, you know, that he was on the right. Now, let me say this. It doesn't even fucking matter. This is horrendous. You know, let's be honest. I mean, it shouldn't have happened. But the reaction that's going on is sickening. Because all of a sudden, we find out he's not an immigrant. He's not a trans. He's not black. You see, he's not Muslim, right? He's none of those things that you expected. And this is what the media was pushing. We all know this. Let's be honest with ourselves, right? Why? Because we have preconceived concepts and facts don't matter. You understand what I'm saying? And you saw the media really pushing this, okay? Now, because it didn't fit the narrative, right? All of a sudden, things are kind of changing. And why are they changing? You know, and then who's to blame? You know, it's hard for me to, because I'm just winging this. Sorry for maybe not making sense. But they're not looking at the cause. That cause being two prone, three prone, if you look at it. Number one is, let's say he didn't fit the narrative, right? Well, let me tell you what the narrative is. What is it? It's like, please Google this. 90% of all these, you know, shooting, murders and stuff, they should have been looking for the white Christian kid. That's right. That's absolutely right. White males, young, you know, middle-aged. These are the weird guys out there. Okay? That's the narrative. We should have thought of that right away. You know, we should have thought of that right away. Now, again, looking at the cause, they're not looking at the causes. This kid grew up with guns. This is what the European news. I'm not saying I know. All I know is I know more than the first day. I know more than the second day. It's just funny how people reacted the first day, right? And like I said, look at Newsmax, look at Fox News, and just watch the messaging of hate, decisiveness, without facts. Without facts. Now, like I said, what do we know about this kid? At least what the media is presenting. We know that this kid, at a very young age, had access to guns. Could that be the reason? No. It's right-wing or left-wing radicalization, right? You see, the left will blame the right will blame the left. Is it maybe just the guns? Maybe. Let's just look at that. We don't want to look at that. Here, what they're saying in Europe is, oh my God, this is sickening. This kid grew up with guns. You know, he was so well trained that he could shoot at 200 meters. You know, he could shoot somebody. Think about that. You know, and you're saying, why doesn't this, you know, again, we're not looking at the reason. Could it be a correlation between more guns and more murders? Why do we have more murders in the USA? Maybe because we have more guns? No, people, let's not look at that. Let's blame left wing radicalization, right? Let the media pretend this is a war. Again, they're using these terms with the enemies within. You know what? It's kind of funny because, we might not be having wars outside the country, but we're having a war inside the country, So, hey, you got to choose. Americans love war. So we're good at it. That's what America's there for. We're really good at war. It's one of the few things that right now we're kicking butt in. But it ends up becoming an issue. Sorry, because it's really sad actually. Now that he was a white male from a Mormon family, and I know Mormons. I know a lot of Mormons. In fact, we had a division where I worked in Salt Lake. We had, I know a lot of Mormons. Great people, some of the best family people on the planet. They have their own problems, but they're not known for this. We do know it seems that the family ended up turning this kid in, and he didn't really want to. He hasn't made a statement, and it goes on and on. But again, what we're seeing from the news is distraction. That's the new thing to do now. It's distraction, because I watched the news today, and boy, has that changed. From definitely a leftist, radical, blue hair, transsexual, transvestite from Transylvania, spreading hate and intolerance on all these marginalized people. It was an immigrant, they were sure of it. Watch the news. Just watch it. And tell me if I'm wrong. Because this was, I was thinking the same thing too, by the way. Just, I'm not any better, but this is definitely the narrative that was being pushed out there. I saw at one point they were saying, oh, let's look at what changed it with Jesse Washington. Like, look, what was it in the last couple of years that changed this great kid who was going to go to college? And you know what? I bet you they wouldn't have been saying that if he was a Mexican. But what could have happened to this kid? And they actually said this. I saw this. I wrote this down because I said, I can't fucking believe this. They're like, this was on Fox News. He went to one semester of college before he quit there. And, colleges are known for this. Are you fucking serious? This was the reason? It's not that the amount of weapons that we have in the U.S., how did this kid get access to the guns, all this, that's really the problem. It was this kid went to, let's not send our kids to school then, this is, I couldn't even believe it. Another one was, oh yeah, that you gotta love this. This is what happens when you're spreading division. You're like, well, that's exactly what you're doing. If spreading division is a way to provide news coverage, well, you're doing a fucking great job. Because you're blaming others. You don't even know who's doing it, and we still don't know. This is the second day. We might find out in 5 days he's something different. And by the way, he could be a left-wing radical. I don't know. It seems that he's in a group. I never even heard of the word until yesterday. A Groiper, some group led by Nick Fuentes that was, really, really against Charlie Cook, saying he's a fake Christian and he's not really a Christian, and because Christians love Christians, but regardless, these guys were not the best friends. It seems to be that obviously we just don't know enough, so it doesn't really matter. This tragedy that happened from the left, from the right, but we're spreading division. We're blaming everything, and we're not blaming the guns. This is ridiculous. This is the most amazing part that the Europeans are like, how come they're not talking about how accessible guns are? This kid, they're like, oh, the Second Amendment. This is for self-defense. What, he needs a scope and a rifle and 200? It's, you're sitting out in your front yard with a fucking gun like this going, oh, well, he's coming too close to my half-acre lot. Let me shoot this motherfucker. Let's be logical. They couldn't trace the pattern from the bullet in the beginning. Here they know exactly which lot was bought by who. Think about this. In the U.S., you buy a car, you move it, you transfer it, you sell it, you do anything, you have to license it, you know exactly who it belonged to, you have every single part in it. You don't do that in the guns. It has nothing to do any longer with the Second Amendment. It has to do with logical thinking. Um, and you're like, oh no, it's mental health problem. America's having a mental health problem. Are you kidding me? Really? That's what it is? It's a mental health problem? Well, then we got a lot of fucking sick people in America, don't we? Um, why are we having a mental health problem then? Maybe it's the decisive character of Fox News and Newsmax. And people are saying, why am I not saying MSNBC? And why am I not saying this? Nothing has gone to this extreme as these two. You have to really bullshit. I agree with it that the other is political commentary, but not this decisive. By the way, if you're saying, oh, this is common of the left, Google it. Show the facts. Don't let your ideology impede. And the facts. The facts are, please Google, because I did. I'm sorry. Google political violence 2013, 2028. And let's see where that comes from. Go ahead, Google it, people. Is it coming from the leftists? Is it coming from the radicalization of the left? And it's there. I'm not naive. I'm not denying it. But let's just look at who the main culprit is, right? Because we want to look at the main culprit, Did you Google it? Tell me what you think. We had a guy going into a church with 9 black people inside a church, shooting them all up. Jeez, where was the political, throat on that? We had a guy walk into, I think it was a I'm just from what I saw on the news, because I try to be informed, just within the last 3 years. A guy went in a hammer, political, they were making jokes about it, Trump's son saying he was a transvestite again, that the guy was actually a homosexual relationship. Distraction, marginalization, this is what we're getting. Now, in regard to Charlie Kirk himself, this kid was saying he was a Christian. You know what? He's responsible for his actions, not the shooter's actions, but for his own actions. Read some of the stuff that he said. And I'm not against him going to universities and debating 19-year-olds, pretending, this is a political hack. To make this guy some kind of a holy martyr as they're doing it. It's the biggest fucking joke in the world. He went against 19, 20-year-olds, pretending he knew better and again, distracting, going off. He was a great debater. But the funny part is, just because you can debate with doesn't mean you're right. You're just a good debater. You can be on the false side of the debate and still debate it properly. That doesn't really mean much to me. I've seen a lot of this, and I know good debaters. But like I said, doesn't make it right anyway, even if you're debating it that way. It all depends on what facts you have and how you're presenting yourself there. But he's a victim of his own politics, isn't he? This is a guy who, for mass school shootings, said that we have to live with this because the Second Amendment is so important. Well, we'll live by your words. So we have to live with this, right? That's just the way it is. We have to live with this. These are his words. This is a guy who was saying that if he goes into a plane and he sees a black pilot, he wants to know where he got that license from. This is not decisive, right? You know what I'm trying to say? This is not division. This is not mistrust. This is not hate. So to pretend that this guy is some kind of holy martyr, and the people that were in the church or a senator, they weren't, and we have to now be all, going down and I don't know, on our knees, in fear of left wing, I don't know what. Come on, people. Please wake up in America. Remember when there was optimism? See, this is what internet radicalization does. Let me give you an example. Media was always controlled. But look at the 70s and 80s when I was in college, and I studied political science, and you would see there was a certain optimism, especially in the United States in the 60s and 70s. We're going to go to the moon, we're going to create this large infrastructure. We're kind of like what the Chinese are doing now, or India. They're optimistic. They're seeing the future as being dominant, and we can achieve anything if we put our minds to it. We've turned into the media pessimistic, enemy oriented situation. I have friends that are seeing Muslims as the biggest threat to the world. I'm serious. I am not joking. He'll see stuff like, for example, something happens in Australia, something happens in Argentina, something happens in, Brussels, and something else happens in Azerbaijan. And this guy's in a village in Greece that has no contact to any of this, right? Yet he has fear. There's literally fear. His reaction of fear of all this is because he would never have this kind of contact unless it was there on a daily level. And it's there on a daily level for him. Because that's what he's scrolling. That's, the logarithms, that's how they work. They know what attracts to his fear or his pessimism, or you understand what I'm trying to say. That car accident, basically. Every one of us has it, and the media is making bucks on this, man, on divisiveness, on marginalization, on hate. There's no more optimism left. There's no more we will achieve as a country. We have this, and or positive criticism of what could be better. Do we have better health care? Are we taking care of our poor? No, none of this. We need more defense. We need more guns. We need more, police. We need more. This is what we've turned into. And I see this a little bit in the U.S. It's just really extreme in America, though. And again, regarding Charles Kirk, like I said, unfortunately, and I mean this, unfortunately, he's responsible exactly for this type of radicalization, regardless if it's coming from the left or the right. And it's naive and stupid to think that, everybody's not involved to a certain extent in that radicalization. You see what I'm saying? Like, including myself. I try to pride myself, maybe because I'm away from the USA, and trying to take a little bit of an external blick and be very skeptical. Be very skeptical of both sides, and try to see, which one is bullshitting me more. In reality, right? You got to find out who, which guy's telling you 51% of the truth as opposed to 49% of the truth, maybe. But, fill in the blanks yourself. But don't let your ideology get in the way of the facts. If you believe, like I said, if you see yourself in that and you believe that you're not part of this radicalization, you're probably fooling yourself. Especially if you're spreading this, and propagating fear and, negativity, and, putting people in jail, and, vindictiveness is the new thing, let's get these people, and like I said, I don't understand it. But that's what happens when you bring people on the edge with fear. And, the right has gotten very far right, people. More so than the left has gone left. Because the left, I know leftism here in Europe, left is, you could, in America, let me put it this way. If you think Bernie Sanders is a radical leftist, they laugh at you here. This would be a normal centrist, probably a little bit center-right. I'm serious. He would be center-right here. He believes in the Second Amendment and all this kind of stuff. But he believes in national health care. That's radical left. Okay? Just to show you. But the right wing has gone so far right that Ronald Reagan would never fit into this party. And he used to be the right wing of the conservative of the Republican Party. He is now left. This was a guy that I think he had 3.8 million illegal immigrants. He actually brought them papers. He gave them that famous asylum. It was the largest asylum of its time to fix this stuff because he knew people needed them for work. So he went through a register, and he did it the right fucking way, as opposed to creating a state of fear. You understand? Look at this. This is the right-wing Republican Party that I grew up with, and a lot of people identify with, was the one that said we have an illegal immigrant problem, and we've had one forever. You know, the joke is always America's always had an illegal immigration problem. Just ask the American Indians. But if you see that, please Google it. It was the biggest asylum case ever at the time. I think it was like over 3.5 million people. It was like 1, 2, 3% of the population was just handed a green card. But you had to provide that you were working somewhere. Obviously, if you were a criminal, you're not going to apply. You were going to get, you know, so they never applied. But that's how you take care of things. You don't create mistrust and hate. Put that on yourselves. Okay? This MAGA crowd has created an America that is just amazingly willing to put up with vindictiveness, you know, sticking it to the libs. This is a political fact nowadays, you know, and you say, oh, well, Obama, and oh, well, this way. Stop that, you know, they're not in power. You're in fucking power. Stop that fucking bullshit, you know, that guy and this guy and oh, what about this? And, you know, distraction and, you know, and making me fear that the other guy is worse. I don't know if the other guy's worth. All I know is this is fucking shit. Sorry for my French. Anybody, take a deep breath. Go outside. Relax. Nobody's your fucking enemy. Everybody's your friend. You know, go out and talk to your neighbors. You know, and if you meet an immigrant, talk to him. He might be a nice guy. You know, if you meet a black guy, you know, he's not necessarily a gangster. Okay, stop the stereotypes. You know, I used to have a joke. It was back then with what do you call an Arab flying an airplane? You call him a pilot. Right? What do you call them? You call them a terrorist, right? See? That's how we are, people. We got to know where the jokes are, and we got to know where reality starts, okay? Anyway, I'm wishing everybody a peaceful weekend and a good start to the week. Starting the day after tomorrow, I probably won't make a lot of these. Adam's Odyssey is beginning. I'll be traveling first day to Nairobi, Kenya, and I'll be giving you information on Nairobi.